Nike launched Just Do It without spending a single dollar on paid ads. Within 10 years, their sale went from 800 million to 9.2 billion. Apple aired their 1984 commercial exactly once during the Super Bowl. It became the most talked about ad in history. Old Spice was a dying brand for old men. One campaign made them viral across every platform. These brands didn't just get lucky, they triggered 3 specific psychological patterns in the human brain. And in the next 12 minutes, I'm breaking down exactly what those triggers are and how you can use them in your own marketing. So what are these 3 triggers? First is emotional resonance, making people feel something before they think. Second is social proof, using the crowd to validate the behavior. And third is scarcity, creating urgency through limitation. Now, most marketers get the first trigger completely wrong. They try to make people feel happy or excited about their product. But that is not what emotional resonance actually means in psychology. Emotional resonance is not about positive emotions. It is about deep emotions, the kind that connect to identity, values, and beliefs. Nike's Just Do It campaign did not make you feel happy about shoes. It made you feel something about yourself, your potential, your discipline, your inner athlete. That is why it worked without any paid advertising. They were not selling shoes. They were selling a version of you that you wanted to become. Let me show you exactly how they did this. In 1988, Nike was losing market share to Reebok. Their ads talked about air cushioning technology and performance metrics. Nobody cared. Then they hired Whedon and Kennedy, and everything changed. Here is the psychology breakdown. In 1988, Nike had a problem. They were sitting at 18% market share in North America. Reebok was dominating with aerobics shoes. Nike's ads looked like every other sports brand. Close-ups of air cushioning technology, slow-motion shots of shoe treads, technical specs about performance metrics. They were selling features, and they were losing. Then they hired Whedon and Kennedy. The brief was simple: make Nike relevant to everyone, not just elite athletes. Dan Whedon, the co-founder, came back with 3 words: just do it. But here is what most people miss. The campaign was not about the shoes. It was about identity transformation. The first ad featured an 80-year-old man named Walt Stack running across the Golden Gate Bridge at 5:30 in the morning. He had been running 17 miles every single day for decades. The voiceover? Just do it. No product shots, no features, no benefits. Just a man embodying discipline and determination. That ad told viewers, this is not about buying shoes. This is about becoming the person who runs at 5:30 a.m. This is called identity-based marketing, and it works because of how your brain processes self-concept. When you see someone like Walt Stack, an ordinary person doing extraordinary things, your brain does not categorize him as an athlete. It categorizes him as a possible version of you. Neuroscientists call this the default mode network. It is the part of your brain that activates when you think about yourself, your values, and your future. Nike's campaign hijacked that network. Every time you saw just do it, your brain was not thinking about shoes. It was thinking, am I the kind of person who just does it? Or am I the kind of person who makes excuses? Nike turned their brand into a mirror. And when people looked into that mirror, they wanted to see an athlete looking back. That emotional connection is 10 times more powerful than any feature or benefit you could list. Because people do not buy products. They buy better versions of themselves. The results were immediate and massive. In the first year after launching Just Do It, Nike's sales increased by 50%. Within 10 years, they went from $877 million in revenue to $9.2 billion. Their market share jumped from 18% to 43%, completely overtaking Reebok. But here is the most important metric: brand value. In 1988, Nike was worth $3 billion. By 2020, the Nike brand alone was worth $32 billion. That is a 10x increase in brand value. And it all started with 3 words that made people feel something about themselves, not about shoes. Now you're probably thinking, I am not Nike. I do not have $1 billion budget. But here is the truth. You do not need one. The Just Do It campaign worked because of psychology, not money. Walt Stack's ad cost almost nothing to produce. It was one man, one bridge, one camera. Here is how you apply this to your business. Stop selling features. Start selling transformation. If you sell fitness coaching, do not talk about workout plans. Talk about becoming the person who wakes up energized. If you sell productivity software, do not list features. Show someone reclaiming their evenings with their family. Ask yourself, what version of themselves does my customer want to become? Then make your brand the bridge to that transformation. That is emotional resonance, and it is the first trigger that makes brands go viral. So that is emotional resonance, making people feel something about their identity, not your product. But there is a problem with this trigger. It only works if people believe the transformation is real. And that is where the second trigger comes in: social proof. This is the psychological principle that says, if everyone else is doing it, it must be the right choice. Your brain uses other people's behavior as a shortcut to make decisions faster. and Apple used this trigger to launch the most famous commercial in advertising history. Let me show you how they did it. January 1984. Apple was about to launch the Macintosh personal computer, but they had a massive problem. IBM dominated the computer market. They had 70% market share. Everyone called them Big Blue. They were the safe choice, the corporate standard, the boring giant that nobody ever got fired for buying. Apple could not compete on specs or price. IBM had more features, more software, more everything, so Apple did something radical. They stopped trying to sell computers. Instead, they sold rebellion. They hired Ridley Scott, the director of Alien and Blade Runner, to create a 60-second commercial that would air exactly once during the Super Bowl. The budget? $900,000 to produce it. Another $800,000 for the airtime. That is $1.7 million for 60 seconds. And Apple's board of directors hated it so much they tried to cancel it. Here is what the commercial showed. A dystopian world. Grey, lifeless workers marching in rows. A massive screen with Big Brother speaking to the masses. Everyone is hypnotized, mindless, identical. Then a woman in bright red shorts runs in carrying a sledgehammer. She is being chased by guards. She sprints toward the screen and hurls the hammer. It shatters. The screen explodes. And then the text appears. On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you will see why 1984 will not be like 1984. The commercial never showed the computer, never listed features, never mentioned price. It showed identity. IBM users were conformists. Mac users were rebels. That was the entire message. And it worked because of social proof psychology. Apple was not asking you to buy a computer. They were asking, which group do you want to belong to? The grey masses following Big Brother, or the rebels breaking free? This is called in-group versus out-group psychology. Your brain is hardwired to categorize people into us versus them. It is an evolutionary survival mechanism. Thousands of years ago, being part of the right group meant safety, resources, and survival. Being in the wrong group meant danger. Neuroscientists have found that when you see someone from your in-group, your brain releases oxytocin. That is the bonding hormone. It creates trust and connection. But when you see someone from an out-group, your amygdala activates. That is your threat detection system. Apple hijacked this ancient brain mechanism. They made IBM the out-group, the boring conformists, the corporate drones, and they made Mac users the in-group, the creative rebels, the innovators. The genius was this: they did not need to convince you the Mac was better. They just needed to make you afraid of being in the wrong group. Social proof does not work by showing you the best option. It works by showing you what everyone like you is choosing, and nobody wants to be the grey drone marching in formation. The results were unprecedented. The commercial aired once during the third quarter of the Super Bowl. 96 million people watched it. Within 24 hours, every major news network was talking about it. Free media coverage worth an estimated $5 million. Apple sold 72,000 Macintosh computers in the first 100 days. That is $2 million in revenue per day. But here is the most important metric: cultural impact. The 1984 commercial is still ranked as the greatest Super Bowl ad of all time. It created a brand identity that lasted decades. Mac users became a tribe, a community, an in-group that defined itself against the corporate conformity of PC users. Apple did not just sell computers, they sold membership in a movement. Now, you are thinking, I cannot afford Ridley Scott, I cannot buy Super Bowl ads. But social proof does not require a massive budget. It requires understanding one simple truth: people look to other people before they make decisions. Here is how you apply this to your business. Show your customers, not your product. If you sell software, do not show screenshots. Show the community of users. If you run a coaching program, do not list your credentials. Show testimonials from people who look like your target customer. If you have a YouTube channel, do not just ask for subscribers. Show your existing community engaging, commenting, creating results. The question is not, is my product good? The question your customer is asking is, are people like me using this? That is social proof. Create the in-group. Make people want to belong. And they will buy to join the tribe, not because of your features. So now you have emotional resonance, making people feel something about their identity, and social proof, using the crowd to validate the choice. But there is one more trigger, and this one is the most powerful because it creates urgency. It makes people act now instead of later. This is scarcity, the psychological fear that if you do not act immediately, the opportunity disappears forever. And Old Spice used this trigger to go from a dying brand for old men to the most viral campaign in internet history. Let me break down exactly how they did it. February 2010. Old Spice was dying. The brand was 73 years old and associated with one thing: your grandfather. Their market share among men aged 18 to 34 was collapsing. Axe body spray was dominating with edgy sexual advertising. Old Spice smelled like nursing homes and nostalgia. They needed to completely reinvent their brand identity in a market that had written them off. So they hired Whedon and Kennedy, the same agency that created Just Do It for Nike. And they launched the Man Your Man Could Smell Like campaign. The first commercial aired during the Super Bowl. It featured Isaiah Mustafa, a former NFL player, delivering a 30-second monologue directly to women. The hook? Ladies, look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he is not me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he is me. The commercial went viral immediately. 23 million views in 36 hours. But that was just the setup. The real genius came 2 days later. Old Spice announced they would respond to fan comments and questions on social media, but not with text. With personalized video responses featuring Isaiah Mustafa in real time. They set up a production studio with a bathroom set, multiple cameras, a teleprompter, and a full crew. Then they started cranking out videos. One every few minutes. Personalized messages to celebrities, influencers, and random fans. Kevin Rose got a video. Alyssa Milano got a video. A guy named Mike, who asked about boats, got a video. They produced 186 personalized video responses in 48 hours. Each video was 20 to 30 seconds long. Each one felt custom-made. And here is the critical part. They announced the campaign would only last 2 days. After that, it was over. No more responses. No second chances. This is scarcity in action. The psychological trigger was not just, this is cool. It was, if I do not engage right now, I will miss my chance forever. FOMO, fear of missing out, became the driving force. People were not just watching. They were commenting, tagging friends, begging for responses, because the opportunity had an expiration date. Scarcity works because of loss aversion. This is a cognitive bias discovered by psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. They found that humans feel the pain of losing something twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining it. Your brain is wired to avoid loss more than seek gain. When Old Spice said this campaign ends in 2 days, they were not creating desire. They were creating fear of loss. What if I miss my chance to get a personalized video from the Old Spice man? What if my favorite celebrity gets one and I do not? What if this becomes a cultural moment and I am not part of it? That fear is more powerful than any product benefit. Neuroscientists have found that when you experience scarcity, your prefrontal cortex, the rational decision-making part of your brain, shuts down. Your amygdala takes over. That is your emotional, impulsive brain. You stop thinking, do I need this? And you start thinking, I need this before it is gone. Old Spice turned a body wash campaign into a ticking time bomb, and people could not resist pulling the trigger. The results were unprecedented. In the first 24 hours of the response campaign, Old Spice's Twitter followers increased by 2,700%. Their Facebook fan interaction went up 800%. The 186 videos generated 11 million views in 1 day. That is more views than Barack Obama's victory speech got on its first day. But here is the metric that mattered most. Sales. 107% increase in Old Spice body wash sales following the campaign. They went from a declining brand to the #1 body wash for men in North America. Market share doubled. The brand went from Grandpa's aftershave to the coolest thing on the internet, all because they created urgency through scarcity. And the campaign cost less than $500,000 in production. They got 1.4 billion media impressions. That is a return on investment of 2,800 to 1. Scarcity does not require a massive budget. It requires a deadline. Now, you cannot produce 186 videos in 48 hours. But you can create scarcity, and it does not require a production studio. It requires understanding one principle. Limited availability creates urgency. Here is how you apply this to your business. If you are launching a product, do not make it available forever. Create a launch window. 72 hours only. If you are offering a service, limit the spots. Only 10 clients this month. If you are running a promotion, add a countdown timer. Offer expires in 24 hours. If you have a YouTube channel, create limited time content series. This deep dive is only available for the next 7 days. The key is making the deadline real. Do not fake scarcity. People can smell artificial urgency. But if the limitation is genuine, if the opportunity truly disappears, your audience will act, because nobody wants to be the person who missed out. That is scarcity. And it is the third trigger that makes brands go viral. So let me bring this all together. You now have the 3 psychological triggers that make brands go viral. Trigger 1. Emotional resonance. Nike's Just Do It campaign. They stopped selling shoes and started selling identity transformation. They made you ask, am I the kind of person who just does it? That emotional connection is 10 times more powerful than listing features. Trigger 2. Social proof. Apple's 1984 commercial. They created in-group versus out-group psychology. Mac users were rebels, IBM users were conformists. They made you afraid of being in the wrong tribe. People do not buy the best product. They buy what people like them are choosing. Trigger 3. Scarcity. Old Spice's response campaign. They created a 48-hour window and generated FOMO. Your brain stops thinking rationally and starts thinking, I need this, before it is gone. Limited availability creates urgency. These three triggers work together. Emotional resonance makes people care. Social proof makes them believe. Scarcity makes them act now. That is the formula. Now here is your action plan. I want you to audit your business using these three triggers. First, emotional resonance. What transformation does your customer want? Not what does your product do? What version of themselves do they want to become? Write that down. Then rewrite your marketing to sell the transformation, not the features. Second, social proof. Who is already using your product or service? Show them. Create testimonials. Build a community. Make potential customers see people like them already in the tribe. If you do not have customers yet, show your process. Show your journey. Bring people along. Third, scarcity. Where can you add genuine deadlines, launch windows, limited spots, seasonal offers, time-sensitive bonuses? Make the opportunity real and make it limited. Do not try to implement all three at once. Pick one trigger, master it, then add the next. Nike spent years perfecting emotional resonance before they layered in social proof. Apple built social proof before they added scarcity to product launches. Old Spice nailed scarcity because they already had emotional resonance from the Super Bowl ad. Build in layers. If you found this breakdown valuable, do two things for me. First, subscribe to this channel. I am breaking down the marketing strategies of the world's biggest brands every single week. Starbucks, Nike, Apple, Tesla. I am decoding how they think so you can apply it to your business. Second, drop a comment and tell me, which trigger are you going to implement first? Emotional resonance, social proof, or scarcity? And what is your biggest challenge with it? I read every comment and I will respond with specific advice for your situation. Until then, remember, great marketing is not about having the best product. It is about understanding human psychology. You now have the three triggers. Go use them. I will see you in the next one.